Yes, we made it through the end of the year, right? Yes, we did, indeedy. Welcome, NFP Neighborhood kids. I'm glad you're here today. Well, we did make it through the end of the year, and I'm glad you're joining me for this first ever asynchronous class for NFP Neighborhood. Thank you for joining me today. And I do hope that your summer is wonderful. I hope that you're going to be back and see me in person this next year. But if you're going somewhere else, you know where I will be. And I hope that you either stop by Bear Creek Elementary School, or you can email me at lcrombie@nsd.org. Today, I have a fun treat for you, and that is I'm going to read a story. And the story comes from a book by Kate DiCamillo, and it's called Mercy Watson. Something wonky this way comes. I don't know how many of you like to go to the movies. I do. Or how many of you like popcorn. I do. Or how many of you like butter? I do. I like butter. So this is a book that I was very interested in because it has to do with movies and popcorn and butter. So I think that you will really enjoy this story. It has different chapters in it. They're all very short chapters, but I'm telling you that it has chapters in it so that if you want to pause it and then come back to it later, there's very good stopping points along the way. So let's get to the story. This story has a movie that you go to a drive-in and watch the movie. There aren't very many drive-in movie theaters anymore, but I remember going to a drive-in movie theater. It's kind of an interesting experience. You actually drive your car into like a huge parking lot. You drive your car up to a special spot. You put a microphone up to the car, and then there's a huge screen up in front of everybody. And you watch the movie and you listen to the sound with a speaker that attaches inside your car. So it's kind of a different experience. And they used to be very, very popular. Oh, I think in the 1950s and through to the 60s and maybe a little bit into the 70s. I don't know where there is a drive-in theater around anymore. Maybe you could find that out. There might be one over still in the Linwood area, or in Everett, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Anyway, let's get to the story, and I will share the screen so you can see the pictures as we go along. Okay, Mercy Watson, something wonky this way comes. And the main character in this story, if you haven't read any Mercy Watson books, is the main character is a pig. I think these pictures will show up a little bit better as we go along. So hang in there. I think that they get a little brighter and start to appear better as it gets, I think it gets a little bit better as we go along. If it doesn't, I will try to change the lighting in the room. But I thought that it had gotten a little bit better. Maybe not. Maybe I'll have to just close the curtains a little bit more. Just a sec. Hang on. Okay, there we go. All righty. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson have a pig named Mercy. Mr. Watson and Mrs. Watson and Mercy live together in a house at 54 Decawoo Drive. One Saturday afternoon, Mr. Watson said to Mrs. Watson, "My darling, my dear, there's a movie at the Bijou called When Pigs Fly." "When Pigs Fly," said Mrs. Watson. "What an inspiring title." "Did you hear?" Mercy did not hear. Mercy did not hear because Mercy was not listening. "It says here that the Bijou proudly serves real butter," said Mr. Watson. "Oh, Oh my, said Mrs. Watson, real butter? Mercy pricked up her ears. She was listening now. Mercy loved butter. She particularly loved butter on hot toast, but she would take butter any way she could get it. Yes, said Mr. Watson. It says here that the Bijou proudly serves real butter on every bottomless bucket of popcorn. Bottomless, said Mrs. Watson. Bottomless, said Mr. Watson, which means all you can eat. All you can eat, said Mrs. Watson. What a delightful concept. Mercy thought that all you can eat was a very delightful concept. Let's go to the movies, said Mr. Watson. Let's, said Mrs. Watson. Oink, said Mercy. Where are you going? Said baby Lincoln. We're off to the movies, said Mr. Watson. Oh, said baby, what movie are you going to see? It's a movie called When Pigs Fly, said Mr. Watson. There's baby. And here's her sister, who we'll find out in just a minute her name. Is it a romance? Said baby. Is it a movie about love? Well, said Mrs. Watson, I think it's basically a movie about pigs flying. Don't be ridiculous, said Eugenia Lincoln. Pigs don't fly. It's a figure of speech. What's a figure of speech? Said Mr. Watson. The movie title, said Eugenia. It's a figure of speech signifying the impossible. Well, said Mrs. Watson, we are going to the impossibly late if we don't get going. Would you care to join us? Said Mr. Watson. Yes, said baby Lincoln. Absolutely not, said Eugenia Lincoln. Oh, sister, said baby, please say yes. No, said Eugenia. But she got in the Watsons' convertible anyway. See, there's Eugenia, and there's baby, and there's Mercy, and there's Mr. and Mrs. Watson. Where are you going? Shouted Stella. We're off to the movies, said Mr. Watson. What kind of movie are you going to see? Said Frank. It's a romance, said baby. It will be inspirational, said Mrs. Watson. It's a figure of speech, shouted Eugenia. Is it a movie with a happy ending? Said Frank. Oh, it must be a happy ending, said Mrs. Watson. Can we come too? Said Stella. The more the merrier, said Mr. Watson. Police Officer Tomiello had the night off. Officer Tomiello was at the Bijou Drive-In. He was with his wife, Mrs. Officer Tomiello. They were in the front row. See, there's the big screen. Looks like a hot dog ad. Is it nice to have the night off from relentless duties of keeping the world safe from crime? Officer Tomiello asked himself. It is nice, he answered himself. It is very nice. See, I think I'll make these pictures a little bit bigger. Mrs. Officer Tomiello smiled. Mrs. Officer Tomiello patted Officer Tomiello's arm. Animal Control Officer Francine Poulet was at the Bijou Drive-In too. Animal Control Officer Francine Poulet was with Alfred P. Tompkins. Alfred P. Tompkins and Francine Poulet were on a date. Do you think that there will be actual pigs in this movie? Said Francine Poulet. I'm not certain, said Alfred P. Tompkins. As an animal control officer, said Francine Poulet, I have found pigs to be the wiliest clients of all. Really, said Alfred. Absolutely, said Francine. Although I did catch a pig once, at least I think I caught a pig. Fascinating, said Alfred P. Tompkins. Simply fascinating. He put his arm around Francine Poulet. Leroy Minker was a small man with a big dream. Leroy Minker wanted to become a cowboy. But for now, Leroy was working at the Bijou Drive-In in concession stand. Leroy Minker was selling bottomless buckets of popcorn. Yippee-yi-yo, he shouted. There's nothing faw. Faw means fake. That's right, it's real butter, folks. Top quality, bottomless, and out of this world. Yippee-yi-yay. In between pouring butter and popping popcorn, Leroy Minker worked on his lasso skills. Here, he twirled the lasso. He made the lasso whistle. He lassoed a bottomless bucket. He lassoed a stool. Yippee-yi-yo, sang Leroy. There's nothing fa about my skill with a lasso. The Watson convertible pulled up to the Bijou ticket window. Help you, said ticket seller Beatrice Lipaleone. We're here to see when pigs fly, said Mr. Watson. Beatrice Lipaleone took her glasses off. She put her glasses back on. She blinked. Pardon me and all, said Beatrice Lipaleone, but I'm saying things are kind of wonky. Is that a pig in the back seat of your vehicle? Her name is Mercy, said Mr. Watson. She's our darling, our dear, said Mrs. Watson. I'm not sure pigs are allowed at a Bijou, said Beatrice Lipaleone. Actually, said Mr. Watson, she is a porcine wonder. Do you allow porcine wonders? Porcine means pig-like. Porcine wonders, said Beatrice Lipaleone. Yes, said Mrs. Watson. Beatrice Lipaleone blinked. I don't think there are any rules against porcine wonders, she said. Excellent, said Mr. Watson. Good evening to you then. Beatrice Lipaleone blinked again. She adjusted her glasses. Wonky, said Beatrice Lipaleone. Wonky in the stream. Mercy put her snout up in the air. She sniffed. Well, that was a wonderful smell. There was an incredible smell. The wonderful, incredible smell was everywhere. The wonderful, incredible smell was butter. Mr. Watson said, I think it's time for a bottomless bucket. Frank, why don't you and I go and get some treats for the ladies? At the concession stand, the little man behind the counter said, Yippee-yi-yo, what do you know? Hey, said Mr. Watson, you're the man who robbed us. Robbed you, said Frank. Yes, said Mr. Watson. He tried to take our toaster. My name is Leroy Minker, said the little man. You're a thief, said Frank. Reformed, said Leroy Minker. I'm a reformed thief studying to be a cowboy. Well, good for you, Mr. Minker, said Mr. Watson. We would like several bottomless buckets. Butter on those buckets, said Leroy. We would like a great deal of butter on those buckets, said Mr. Watson. Yippee-yi-yo, said Leroy. That's the way to go. The smell of butter was absolutely everywhere. The smell of butter was driving Mercy wild. Where was the butter smell coming from? Mercy thought she would go and investigate. She leaped out of the convertible. She moved with purpose. There was anything more heavenly than being hot on the trail of a true butter smell? Mercy did not think so. She trotted faster. Mercy Watson was a pig on a mission. Hey now, said Alfred P. Tompkins, speaking of pigs, isn't that a pig right there? Where? Said Francine Poulet. There, said Alfred P. Tompkins. He pointed at the pig that was trotting past the truck. The pig had its snout up in the air. The pig looked very happy. That, said Francine Poulet, is the pig from Decawoo Drive. I have dealt with that pig before. I wonder what a pig is doing at the movies, said Alfred P. Tompkins. That's a good question, said Francine. That's the kind of question that only an animal control officer can answer. Fascinating, said Alfred P. Tompkins. Don't make any sudden movements, said Francine Poulet. She reached into the back of her truck. She grabbed her net. If you want to see an animal control officer in action, follow me. Fascinating, said Alfred P. Tompkins. Simply fascinating. I'm right behind you. Mercy stopped. She sniffed. The smell of butter was very strong. The smell of butter was very near. The smell of butter was coming from the back seat of a station wagon. Mercy stuck her head in the window. She sniffed again. The smell of butter was coming from an extremely large bucket in the hands of a very small child. Mercy helped herself. The small child screamed, Papa, Papa, a monster is eating my popcorn. Mercy chewed. The popcorn was drenched in butter. It was delicious. A man stuck his face in Mercy's snout. What do you think you're doing? Said the man. What did Mercy think she was doing? She thought she was enjoying a buttery snack. Get out of here, shouted the man. He gave Mercy a very forceful shove. The popcorn went flying everywhere. Mercy thought that perhaps it was time to move on. In the front row of the Bijou Drive-In, Officer Tomilello sat up straight in his seat. Officer Tomilello said, Did you hear that? Mrs. Tomilello said nothing. Was that a scream of distress? Said Officer Tomilello. It sounded like a scream of distress, he answered himself. Is someone in trouble? Officer Tomilello asked. Mrs. Tomilello said nothing. It is very possible that someone is in trouble, Officer Tomilello answered himself. Is it time for an officer of the law to step in? Officer Tomilello asked. Most definitely, he answered. Officer Tomilello put on his badge around his neck. He got his bullhorn from the back seat of his car. He kissed Mrs. Officer Tomilello goodbye. He said, I am off to make the world a safer place. I am, he answered himself. I am most definitely off to make the world a safer place. Mrs. Officer Tomilello waved goodbye. Mercy discovered that there was hot butter popcorn everywhere. Every car had big buckets of popcorn. Every car had open windows. The popcorn was buttery. The popcorn was crunchy. The popcorn was delicious. Well, it's like going to heaven, isn't it, for a pig? Mercy helped herself. She helped herself again and again. People screamed. People laughed. People fainted. Mercy kept eating. In the meantime, Mr. Watson and Frank returned to the convertible with several bottomless buckets of popcorn. Mrs. Watson was crying. My darling, my dear, said Mr. Watson, what is wrong? It's a tragedy, said Mrs. Watson. I wouldn't exactly call it a tragedy, said Eugenia Lincoln. Mercy is missing, said Stella. Don't worry, said Mr. Watson, we'll find her. I'll wait for her here if you don't mind, said Eugenia Lincoln. She helped herself to some hot buttered popcorn. Leroy Meeker had heard people screaming about monsters. Leroy Meeker heard people shouting about pigs. Leroy Meeker saw a woman with a net run past the concession stand. What are you trying to catch? Said Leroy Meeker. A pig, said the woman with the net. A pig, said Leroy Meeker. That's right, said the woman. You're not going to catch livestock with a net, said Leroy Meeker. What you need is a lasso. Yippee-i-o. Mr. Watson and Stella and Frank and Baby shouted, "Mercy, mercy, mercy." "Should you remain calm?" Officer Tomello asked. "You must definitely remain calm." At the ticket counter, Beatrice Lapalleone took her glasses off and put them back on. "Wonky," said Beatrice Lapalleone. "Wonky in the extreme. Maybe it's some kind of emergency. Maybe I should call for help." Beatrice Lapalleone adjusted her glasses. She picked up the phone. Beatrice Lapalleone dialed the fire department. Mercy was having a wonderful time. She had consumed a large amount of buttered popcorn, and now people were chasing after her. Mercy loved to chase. Mercy ran faster. She kicked up her heels. Well, this is about a perfect night for her, isn't it? "Gotcha!" shouted Francine Poulet. Francine Poulet netted Officer Tommy Lello. Sorry. "Yippee-i-o!" shouted Leroy Meeker. He lassoed Francine Poulet. "Fascinating," Alfred P. Tompkins said. "Simply fascinating." There was the sound of a siren. There was a flash of lights. A fire truck pulled into the bijou. "Things seem to be out of control," said the fireman named Ned. "It's the movies," said the fireman named Lorenzo. "They make people crazy." "Actually," said a man next to Ned, "I think the pig is making people crazy." "Holy smokes, I know that pig," said Lorenzo. "It's the toast-loving pig from Decawoo Drive." "I'll tell you," said the man standing next to Ned, "this is way better than any movie I've ever seen. It's all been fascinating, simply fascinating." "I guess it's time for us to come to the rescue," said Ned. "We should do what only firemen can do," said Lorenzo. Ned and Lorenzo took off running. Ned and Lorenzo ran very fast. Ned and Lorenzo caught up with Mercy. "Hey," said Ned, "how's about some toast?" "Yes," said Lorenzo. "How about some toast with a great deal of butter?" Mercy stopped running. Mercy sat down. Mercy thought very hard. Toast sounded like an excellent idea to her. Toast always sounded like an excellent idea to her. Ned sat down next to Mercy. He put his arm around her. "Oh," said Mrs. Watson, "you found her. How will we ever be able to thank you for helping us locate our darling dear?" said Mr. Watson. "Well," said Ned, "I'm a little hungry. Toast would be good," said Lorenzo. "Toast," said Mrs. Watson. "I would love to make some toast. Who else would like to have some toast?" That's quite a bit of toast, isn't it? Look at all of them enjoying toast. The gang's all there, huh? Can you see everybody? There's all the people from the movies. They've got their lights strung up. My, aren't they having fun? Jelly and drinks and butter, lots of butter, and it's like you could have French toast if you wanted. We never did get to see that movie, said Stella. I wonder if it ended up happily, said Frank. Well, said Mrs. Watson, here we are, all of us together. And we're eating all together, said Mr. Watson. I can't imagine a happier ending than that, said Mrs. Watson. It's the happiest possible ending, said Baby Lincoln. It's almost like a love story. It is a love story, said Mr. Watson. And it's very inspirational, said Mrs. Watson. So there's some other books that include Mercy Watson. There's 6 of them, in fact, and you can find them at the library this summer if you want to. I hope that you enjoyed these stories, the chapters about Mercy Watson, and they're by Kate D. Camillo, if you want to check them out at the library. I checked this one out, as you can see, from the library. So these are great stories to read during the summertime if you want to. And I hoped that you enjoyed this one and that you have a wonderful summer. So I will hopefully see you soon or hear from you soon. Don't forget, you can always email me. Make sure that you mark your attendance, which I linked up above, and have a great summer. Bye-bye.